Yeah. Howdy, and welcome back to the Texas Bucket List. Being a child of the 80s, there are a few cars I've always wanted. The General Lee from Dukes of Hazzard, Kit from Knight Rider, and a black Trans Am from Smokey and the Bandit, and of course, a DeLorean. Surprisingly, the DeLorean Motor Company is now based in Texas, which gives me the perfect excuse to cross it off the list. In a large warehouse near the George Bush Intercontinental Airport, there's a plethora of parts that have been passing through time looking for the perfect fit. Since 1981, these glass windows, motors, and mechanical necessities have been perfectly preserved, waiting for their time to shine on a stainless steel set of wheels that we all know. Doc's time machine. I mean, a DeLorean.
They always ask where Doc is, where's Marty? They call you Marty.
James Espy is the vice president at the DeLorean Motor Company in Humble, and we're going to take this moment to get all of our Back to the Future references out of the way.
I can only imagine how many Back to the Future jokes you hear.
There's lots of Back to the Future jokes. What happens when you go 88 miles an hour? Well, you get a ticket. There's some off-color ones. People always ask, where's the flux capacitor? And I tell them it's behind my McFly.
Oh man.
That may be too off-color.
While James and his crew have heard their fair share of Back to the Future banter, deep down there's still a soft spot for the movie that centers around the car company that now calls Texas home.
A lot of people here have a love-hate relationship with it. You know?
I can imagine.
That timeless movie may be the very reason the DeLorean Motor Company still exists, and James wouldn't go back in time to change a thing.
I guarantee you right now, someplace in the world, one of those three movies is on TV, and somebody is seeing it for the first time. So there's this constantly regenerating stream of people being exposed to the car. I'll go to a car show, and kids 7, 8, 9 years old, they all know the time machine, but they couldn't tell you a Camaro from a GTO from a Mustang.
That has created a massive market for this unique sports car that was only produced for a few years.
It's a 40-year-old used car. Any 40-year-old used car is always going to need something. Unfortunately, we're in the something business.
The story of DeLorean starts with its creator.
John DeLorean was the maverick mogul. He was the Elon Musk of his day, really. John's MO was, make it flashy.
And flashy it was. Built in Northern Ireland, the car had a sticker price of $25,000.
The factory produced a total of 8,987 DeLoreans over the 1981, 1982, and 1983 model years. Out of those almost 9,000 cars, we believe there's about 6,500 or so left around the world now.
DeLorean had to shut down operations, and for decades, the extra parts changed hands several times before finally ending up in Houston.
There's about 3.5 million or so parts here in the building. About 2,800 parts it takes to make up a DeLorean. So you've got to have what people need to keep the cars on the road, and that's why we're here.
4 full-time mechanics constantly work on nothing but DeLoreans.
At any given time, we're working on 30 to 40 cars at a time. They come from literally all over the country, sometimes from overseas. We do everything from full body off restorations to things like oil changes for people.
People are dropping off cars and not expecting for them to be worked on for how long?
Sarah, what's the waiting list for cars now for service?
Summertime, next summer.
Yeah. So they can start on them next summer or have them next summer.
I can start on them next summer.
Yeah.
Wow. But this is all new suspension and everything in here, huh?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, new brake lines. That's amazing.
Most of the parts they use here are original, and seeing the inventory is impressive. Literally, every single part of the car can be found here. From frames to fittings to those popular fold-up doors, they've got about 1,000 of them.
Will there ever come a point, you think, where you need to get more doors, or are you pretty good for a while?
Oh, from your lips to God's ears. Right now we typically sell about maybe 10, 15 doors a year. So
really?
Realistically, my great-grandkids will probably still be selling doors out of this building, I think.
That's amazing to see made in W Germany on that.
Yeah, parts were made back in West Germany for the DeLorean. Wow. And of course, West Germany no longer exists, but it lives on here.
That's something else. It's a history lesson just walking through here.
Today, these vehicles aren't cheap, and if you want to make it look like you could time travel in your DeLorean, well, they can make that happen.
Depending on mileage and options, they'll generally run somewhere between the upper 60s to the 110, 120,000 range.
Flux capacitor an option here?
We do have flux capacitors. We have Mr. Fusions. Our store out in California does actual time machine conversions. Well, they'll take a DeLorean, either one you have or one that they provide for you, and turn it into a whole time machine.
Just like the movie.
Other than the fact that it really doesn't travel to time, but it will make you feel a lot younger when you're driving it.
There's a future for the DeLorean, right? And are you guys part of that future?
We're part of it. There's going to be a new DeLorean, and we expect it to debut in the late summer of 2022, and it's really going to be a stunner. The car will be electric. It'll have gull-wing doors. It's going to actually be a four-seater. It'll probably be about the same dimensions, maybe a little bit bigger.
So if a DeLorean from the past isn't what you seek, just keep your eyes to the future to get back to that feeling of traveling through time.
If you're ever passing through Houston, this is a good place to see more DeLoreans than you'll ever probably see together in one place in your whole life.
We're taking Texas to the country.
The Texas Bucket List is brought to you by Simmons Bank, where the spirit of Texas lives on. Slovacek's, you'll love our sausage. And Dairy Queen. That's what I like about Texas.